She thought I wouldn't notice. She thought she was clever. Lisa had always been a meticulous liar, weaving her deceptions with just enough truth to make them believable. She said she was going to visit her father, an old man in declining health. She even showed me the messages, short check-ins that painted her as a devoted daughter. But something felt off. It wasn't just the way she avoided my eyes when she spoke, or how her phone was always upside down on the counter. It was deeper than that, an instinct gnawing at the edges of my mind, whispering that the woman I had built a life with was slipping away. So, I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I started watching. At first, it was small things, checking the bank statements, noting the withdrawals, a hotel charge, a lodge, one we had been to before, a place filled with memories of us, our honeymoon suite, the crackling fireplace, the scent of pine lingering in the air, a place she was now sharing with someone else. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. I stared at the transaction on my screen, my breath shallow. A single charge. 3 nights. A betrayal hidden in plain sight. I needed to see it with my own eyes. The drive to the lodge was a blur of fury and disbelief. The headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the winding roads like a path leading straight into my worst nightmare. My grip on the steering wheel tightened with every mile. Then, I was there. The parking lot was half empty, the kind of place where couples went to escape, to indulge in stolen moments of passion. Her car was there, parked neatly under the dim glow of a street lamp. My pulse pounded in my ears as I walked toward the front desk, forcing my expression into something neutral. "I'm looking for Lisa Carter," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "She's my wife." The receptionist hesitated, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then, recognition flickered in her eyes. "Oh, Mrs. Carter. She checked in yesterday," she said, glancing toward the guest list. "Room 214. The honeymoon suite." I nodded, murmured a thank you, and walked toward the stairs, my stomach twisting with every step. My hands felt numb, my body running on pure adrenaline. I knew what I would find behind that door, but knowing and seeing were two different things. I reached the room, stood in front of it. A shadow moved behind the curtains. Laughter. Hers. Light. Playful. A man's voice, low and familiar. Then, silence. I could walk away. Pretend I never saw it. Preserve the illusion of the life we had built. Or I could open the door and tear everything apart. I reached for the handle and turned it. The door wasn't locked. I didn't hesitate. It swung open in one swift motion, and there she was, Lisa. My wife. My partner. The woman I had spent years loving, trusting, building a life with. Wrapped in silk sheets that weren't ours. Her bare shoulder was exposed in the dim glow of the bedside lamp, her golden hair spilling over the pillows in waves I had once traced with my fingers. Her body, my wife's body, tangled in the arms of a man who wasn't me. And then I saw him. Mark, my best friend. His arm was slung around her waist, his face buried in the crook of her neck, as if they had done this 1,000 times before. He looked comfortable. Too comfortable. Something inside me snapped. Lisa's eyes shot open first. For one fleeting second, she didn't react. Then she gasped, scrambling upright, pulling the sheets over her chest as if she could somehow erase the truth I had already seen. "Ethan?" Her voice was hoarse with sleep and something else, fear. Mark sat up slower, his expression twisting from confusion to horror as his gaze locked onto mine. He had the audacity to look guilty, to part his lips like he was about to stammer out an excuse. I didn't give him the chance. I lunged. The impact was solid. Fists, rage, years of trust breaking apart in my hands. Mark hit the floor with a thud, groaning as I landed another punch. My knuckles cracked against his jaw. He tried to shove me off, but I was stronger, angrier. "Stop. Ethan, stop." Lisa shrieked, scrambling out of bed, grabbing my arm. Her hands on me, after being on him. The touch made me recoil. I shoved Mark back down, my breathing ragged. He stayed there, chest rising and falling in panicked gasps, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. His eyes darted between me and Lisa, searching for an escape. Coward. Lisa was still clutching the sheets around herself. Her lips parted in shock, in terror, in guilt. I turned to her, my vision blurred with betrayal. How long? I demanded. She flinched. Ethan, please. How long? My voice was low, venomous. A demand for the truth she owed me. She swallowed, her hands trembling where they clutched the fabric. It's not what you think, she whispered, her voice cracking. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Not what I think. Lisa, I just walked in on you screwing my best friend. What part of that is open to interpretation? Tears welled in her eyes. She shook her head, like she could somehow rewrite reality with the force of her denial. I never meant for this to happen, she choked out. Mark, still sprawled on the floor, finally found his voice. Ethan, man. Shut up. He did. Lisa wiped at her eyes, breathing uneven. I was going to tell you. I felt my stomach lurch. I could handle a lot of things, but lies on top of lies? No. I stepped back, shaking my head. My entire body trembled with adrenaline, betrayal, and something dangerously close to grief. You were never going to tell me, I said, my voice steadier now, colder. You were going to keep sneaking around, lying to my face, smiling at me across our dinner table while I stopped. The words burned too much to finish. Lisa sobbed, burying her face in her hands, as if she was the victim here. I turned away. I couldn't stand to look at her. At them. I needed to get out of that room before I lost the last shred of control I had. Before I did something I'd regret. I walked to the door, every step heavy, final. Lisa reached for me, her voice desperate. Ethan, please. Where are you going? I didn't turn back. I just said, home. And then I was gone. I don't remember the drive home. The road stretched endlessly before me. The world outside the windshield blurred by the storm inside my head. The anger had settled into something heavier now, something suffocating, curling around my ribs like iron. Lisa, my wife, Mark, my best friend, the two people I had trusted most in this world had destroyed me in one night. Or had it been longer? That was the question that gnawed at me as I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white. How long had they been sneaking around? How many lies had she told with a kiss on my cheek, a whisper of, I love you, as she left for another family visit? Had it started months ago? Years? I pulled into the driveway of our home. No, my home. It didn't feel like ours anymore. Not after tonight. The house was dark, silent, but it wasn't comforting like it used to be. It felt hollow, like me. I stepped inside, kicking the door shut behind me. The weight of the night pressed down on me all at once. My legs felt unsteady, my breaths uneven. My mind raced, sifting through memories with a clarity that felt cruel. Lisa laughing across the dinner table, her phone lighting up beside her. I need to take this. It's work. Lisa pulling away from my touch some nights, claiming exhaustion, stress. Mark clapping me on the back at our last barbecue, grinning like a brother. You're a lucky man, Ethan. Lisa's a gem. Lies. All of it. I clenched my jaw as I walked into the living room. My eyes landed on the framed wedding photo above the fireplace. Lisa, in her white dress, smiling up at me like I was the only man in the world. I should have taken it down, smashed it. Instead, I stood there, staring at it, my own face in the photo mocking me. That version of me, the man who had believed in love, in loyalty, he was gone. And I had no idea what came next. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't have to look. I already knew. Lisa. I let it ring. The screen went dark. Then it lit up again. Lisa calling. I exhaled slowly, rubbing a hand over my face. Then, without really knowing why, I answered. I didn't say anything. For a moment, neither did she. Then, her voice came through the line, raw and trembling. Ethan, please. Just let me explain. Explain? Explain what? That she had betrayed me in the very place we had once made love on our honeymoon? That she had wrapped herself around him in sheets I once pulled over her shoulders? I closed my eyes, forcing down the rage. You don't get to explain, I said finally, my voice low, empty. She inhaled sharply, as if the words had hit her like a slap. I know I hurt you. I laughed. I couldn't help it. A sharp, bitter sound that cut through the silence. Hurt me? Lisa, you shattered me. I didn't mean. I clenched my jaw. Don't say you didn't mean to. Silence. I could hear her breathing on the other end, shaky and uneven. I imagined her in that hotel room, sitting on the edge of the bed, her fingers twisted in her hair. A part of me wanted to ask her the one question clawing at my throat. Why? But I already knew the answer. Because she could. Because she wanted to. Because people don't betray you by accident. I exhaled slowly. Lisa, listen carefully. She sniffled. Ethan, please. No, I cut in. You don't get to beg. You don't get to cry like you're the victim. Another silence. Then, a broken whisper. I love you. Something inside me twisted. A cruel, ironic part of me wondered. Had she whispered those same words to him? I swallowed the lump in my throat. Then you should have chosen me. And I hung up. Lisa didn't call again that night. I sat in the dark for hours, staring at nothing, drowning in memories I no longer knew were real. When I finally stood, the wedding photo still hung on the wall. But the man in the picture was a stranger to me now, and I was done being him. Morning came too soon. I hadn't slept. Not really. I had spent the night in a haze, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the past few months, the past few years, searching for the exact second Lisa had decided I wasn't enough. And Mark. The thought of him made my stomach turn. The man I had called brother. The man who had stood beside me on my wedding day, clapping my shoulder and saying, "You've got a good one, Ethan. Hold on to her." The same man who had been holding on to her behind my back. The rage came in waves, swelling and crashing, threatening to consume me whole. But I wouldn't let it. Not yet. I needed to be smart, calculated. I needed to know everything. Lisa hadn't called again. No frantic messages, no pleading texts. Nothing. It told me one of two things. Either she was giving me space before she tried to manipulate her way out of this, or she was with him. I reached for my phone, my hand steady despite the storm inside me. I had work to do. The first step was easy. Bank statements. I logged into our shared account, scrolling through the charges with a detached, clinical focus. The hotel wasn't the only transaction that stood out. There were others, fancy restaurants I had never been to, gifts I had never received. But one thing caught my attention. An account transfer. Lisa had been moving money. Not much at a time, but enough. Enough to be deliberate. Enough to suggest she had been planning this. I clenched my jaw. She wasn't just cheating. She was preparing to leave. And if she thought she was going to walk away from our marriage, from our home, from me, with everything we had built together, she had another thing coming. Step 2 was harder. Mark. I had spent years trusting him, confiding in him, treating him like family. Now, every memory of our friendship felt like acid on my skin. I needed to look him in the eyes. I needed to hear him admit it. I dialed his number, my thumb pressing against the screen with more force than necessary. The phone rang. Once. Twice. Then, a hesitant answer. Ethan. Just my name. No hey, man, or listen. I can explain. Coward. Meet me, I said, my voice dangerously calm. A pause. Then, Ethan, I don't think. Meet me. Another silence. I could hear him breathing, probably trying to decide if it was safer to hide or face me. I made the decision for him. You owe me that much. That did it. He sighed, his voice heavy. Fine. Where? Beacon's Cafe. 30 minutes. I hung up before he could respond. Beacon's Cafe was quiet when I arrived, the scent of fresh coffee and burnt toast hanging in the air. Mark was already there, sitting in a booth near the back, his hands wrapped around a steaming cup like it could protect him from what was coming. I slid into the seat across from him. Didn't greet him. Didn't smile. He looked like hell. A faint bruise darkened his jaw where I had hit him the night before, and there were bags under his eyes, as if sleep had avoided him too. Good. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then, he exhaled sharply. Ethan, man. I don't know what to say. I tilted my head. Try the truth. Mark flinched. His fingers tightened around his cup. It wasn't supposed to happen, he muttered. eyes downcast. I swear to God, Ethan, I never wanted to hurt you. I leaned forward, my voice low and controlled. How long? He hesitated. I slammed my fist onto the table, making the cups rattle. How long, Mark? His shoulders tensed. Then, finally, he broke. A year, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. A year. I inhaled slowly, forcing the fury down, down, down. So every time you looked me in the eye, every time you came to my house, drank my beer, played with my goddamn dog, you were sleeping with my wife? Mark's face crumpled. Ethan, I laughed. Sharp, cold. Was it fun? I asked, my voice dripping with something dangerously close to amusement. Did you two laugh about it after? Talk about how easy I was to fool. No, he snapped, his eyes flashing with something. Regret, shame, or maybe just fear. It wasn't like that. Shut up. He did. I leaned back, folding my arms. Tell me, Mark, did she tell you she loved you? He hesitated. That was all the answer I needed. Something inside me snapped. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. I should kill you, I said conversationally. Right here. Right now. Mark paled. Ethan. I shook my head. But I won't. He swallowed. I smiled. Let it stretch. Let it darken. Because ruining you will be so much more satisfying. And then I walked out, leaving him sitting there with nothing but his guilt and his coffee gone cold. I didn't go home. Not yet. There was one more move to make before I set everything in motion. I got in my car and pulled up Lisa's location on my phone. She didn't know I could track her. Not yet. A while back, I had installed a security app on both our devices, something we had agreed to just in case of emergencies. Well, this was an emergency. I watched the little blinking dot settle right where I expected. She was still at the lodge. With him. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white. She hadn't even tried to come home. She hadn't tried to find me, to apologize, to explain. She had stayed with him. The betrayal was suffocating, but I swallowed it down. I wasn't here to drown in emotions. I was here to destroy. I took a deep breath and dialed my lawyer. Divorce? Daniel sounded surprised. Ethan, are you sure? I laughed bitterly. I caught her in bed with Mark. How much more sure do I need to be? Daniel exhaled sharply. Shit. I'm sorry, man. Save the sympathy, I muttered. What do I need to do? Well, he said, switching to business mode. If you want to come out of this with your assets intact, we need to move fast. Are you still the primary name on the house? Yes. The business? All mine. Bank accounts? Joint, but I've already seen her moving money. Daniel hummed. Then the first thing you need to do is separate finances before she drains you dry. I was already ahead of him. Consider it done. Good, he said. Now, do you want to go the civil route? Or do you want to make this painful? I didn't hesitate. Make it hurt. Daniel chuckled darkly. I was hoping you'd say that. Step 1. Freeze the accounts. I logged into our bank account and transferred every single penny into my personal savings. Lisa hadn't taken much yet, but she had been testing the waters. She was preparing to run. Now she had nowhere to go. Step 2. The house. I changed the locks. My house. My name. My rules. Step 3. The exposure. Lisa had been so careful to keep her affair a secret. I wasn't going to give her that luxury anymore. I sent out a mass text to our friends, her parents, my parents, everyone. Just so you all know, Lisa has been sleeping with Mark for the past year. Caught them together at the lodge last night. Divorce papers are being filed. Just thought you should hear it from me before she starts rewriting the story. I pressed send. And just like that, the world knew. Lisa called 10 minutes later. I let it ring. She called again. And again. Finally, I picked up. Ethan, what the hell did you do? She shrieked. I smiled. I told the truth. You locked me out of the house, she stammered. You emptied our accounts? Our accounts? I echoed. No, Lisa. My accounts. My house. My life. Her breath hitched. Ethan, please, can we just... Don't beg, Lisa. I cut in, my voice colder than I thought possible. It's pathetic. She sobbed. Actually sobbed. I made a mistake. A mistake? I laughed, sharp and cruel. Lisa, a mistake is forgetting to pick up the dry cleaning. A year-long affair is a choice. Silence. Then, a broken whisper. I love you. My stomach twisted, but not with longing, with disgust. No, I said, my voice final. You love yourself. And I hung up. For the first time in years, I felt free. I expected her to show up that night, to pound on the door, scream, demand that I let her in, that I forgive her. But she didn't. Maybe she was too ashamed. Maybe she was still with him. Or maybe she finally understood. There was no coming back from this. I sat in my darkened living room, sipping a whiskey that tasted like victory, letting the silence settle around me like a new skin. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting on Lisa. I wasn't making excuses for her, bending over backward to make her happy. I was done. And yet, even as I sat there, my phone buzzed again. Another message, not from Lisa, from Mark's wife. Her name was Olivia. We had been friendly once, back when I still believed our marriages were built on solid ground. She was kind, sharp, the kind of woman who saw everything even when she pretended not to. I should have known she already suspected. Olivia, Ethan, I just saw your text. Please tell me this isn't true. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. Me? I wish I could. A moment passed, then another. Then, her response. Olivia, meet me. We met at a small bar just outside of town. Neutral ground. When she walked in, she looked composed. Too composed. Like someone barely holding it together with shaking hands and a steel spine. She slid into the seat across from me, exhaling sharply. I need you to tell me everything. So I did. I told her about the lodge, the receipts, the texts, the way Mark had confessed with guilt written all over his face. I didn't soften the details. She deserved the full truth, unfiltered and raw. By the time I finished, her fingers were clenched around her glass so tightly I thought it might break. A year, she whispered, more to herself than to me. I nodded. Her lips pressed into a thin line. That bastard, she murmured. That pathetic, spineless bastard. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. She took a deep breath, her eyes flashing with something dangerous. So, she said slowly, what's your next move? I smirked, already in motion. Her eyebrows lifted. Tell me. So I did. She listened, her expression unreadable, until finally, she nodded. Good. But you're missing something. I tilted my head. What's that? She leaned in, her voice low. Revenge is better when it's mutual. And just like that, Olivia and I were on the same team. There's something terrifying about a woman who's been betrayed. Olivia wasn't crying. She wasn't shaking. She was planning. And I respected the hell out of it. She sipped her drink, eyes cold and calculating. Mark and Lisa don't just get to walk away from this, she said. They don't get to pretend like they're the victims. I smirked. I was thinking the same thing. She leaned forward. Tell me everything you've done so far. I laid it out. The frozen accounts. The mass text. The divorce papers being drawn up. The locks changed. Olivia nodded, impressed. Not bad, she said. But I can do you one better. I raised an eyebrow. Oh. Her lips curled into something almost wicked. Mark doesn't know it yet, but I already filed for divorce weeks ago. That got my attention. Weeks. She exhaled, swirling the liquid in her glass. I knew something was off. He wasn't exactly subtle. Late nights, secret calls, the way he'd get defensive over nothing. I hired a private investigator, Ethan. She looked up at me. I knew before you did. Something hot and sharp twisted in my chest. I had been blind. You didn't tell me? I asked, my voice tighter than I meant it to be. She looked away. I wanted proof before I destroyed my marriage. Her jaw clenched. Turns out, I didn't need it. You walked in on them before I could. I exhaled slowly, letting that settle. She wasn't wrong. And now? Now we were here. I tapped my fingers against the table. So what's your plan? She smiled, slow and dangerous. Mark's about to lose everything. She broke it down for me. Mark and Olivia had joint investments. Lots of them. Real estate, stocks, even a vacation home they had been renting out. And Olivia? She had full control over them. I've already started liquidating assets, she said smoothly. Mark won't see a cent. I let him think he was the one in charge, but I've been signing the papers. It's all mine. I grinned. Cold-blooded. She smirked. You have no idea. And then she hit me with the best part. Lisa and Mark had nowhere to run. I had taken Lisa's financial security. Olivia had taken Mark's. And now? We were going to take their reputations. Olivia pulled out her phone and slid it across the table. Here, she said. I looked down. Screenshots, texts, pictures, everything. Lisa telling Mark she didn't love me anymore, that she was only staying for stability. Mark saying Olivia was too cold for him, that he was waiting for the right time to leave. Proof. I whistled. Damn. Olivia smiled. Let's send them out, shall we? I picked up my phone. To who? She shrugged. Everyone. I grinned. Perfect. It took less than 5 minutes. I sent the screenshots to our entire circle. Friends, family, business partners. And then I posted them online. Mark and Lisa's entire affair, laid bare for the world to see. The fallout was immediate. My phone exploded with messages. People calling, texting, reacting with everything from outrage to stunned silence. And then, the fun part. Mark called first. I let it ring. Lisa called next. This time, I picked up. Her voice was hysterical. Ethan, what did you do? I smiled. Told the truth. She was sobbing now. Actually sobbing. You ruined me. You. I laughed. Lisa, you ruined yourself. I hung up. Olivia looked at me from across the table, raising her glass. To karma. I clinked mine against hers. To revenge. And then, we drank. Lisa showed up at my house that night. I wasn't surprised. Desperate people always come crawling back. The doorbell rang once, sharp and insistent. Then again. Then, pounding. I took my time answering. When I finally opened the door, she was standing there, her face streaked with tears, her eyes wild. She looked like a woman who had lost everything. Good. Ethan, she gasped, wrapping her arms around herself like she was cold. Please, we need to talk. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. About what? She swallowed hard. You didn't have to do that. The texts, the bank accounts, the exposure. Her voice broke on the last word. You ruined me. I tilted my head. Funny, that's exactly what you did to me. She flinched, like she couldn't handle hearing the truth. I made a mistake, she whispered. A horrible mistake. But, Ethan, I love you. I stared at her, at the trembling lip, the wide, pleading eyes. It would have worked once. Not anymore. I smirked. You love me? I repeated. That's interesting. She blinked. Ethan, please. I took out my phone and pulled up the text Olivia had sent me earlier. I held it up so Lisa could see her own words. I don't love him anymore, Mark. I'm just staying for stability. Lisa froze. The blood drained from her face. Her lips parted, but no words came out. I tucked my phone back into my pocket. That doesn't sound like love to me. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I didn't mean that, she choked out. I was confused. I was lost. I held up a hand, stopping her. No, I said calmly. You were selfish. You were greedy. And you lost. Lisa sobbed. Ethan, please. I have nothing. Mark, he's gone. Olivia took everything. I have nowhere to go. My chest burned with something darkly satisfying. Not my problem. She reached for me. I stepped back. And then I said the words I knew would break her. The biggest mistake you made, Lisa, was thinking I'd ever take you back. Her breath hitched. Her entire body sagged, like the weight of her choices had finally crushed her. I stepped inside and shut the door. And for the first time in years, I felt free. Lisa was gone. For good. She had made her bed, with Mark. Now she could rot in it. But there was still one loose end to tie up. Him. I wanted to watch him fall. And thanks to Olivia, I didn't have to wait long. The next morning, I got a text from Olivia. Olivia, you're gonna love this. Check the news. I frowned, unlocking my phone. It only took a few seconds of scrolling before I saw it. A headline. A familiar name. Mark Bennett under investigation for fraud. I grinned. Oh, this just keeps getting better. I called Olivia immediately. She picked up on the first ring. You like my surprise? She said, amusement lacing her voice. I laughed. Please tell me you had something to do with this. Oh, I had everything to do with it, she said smugly. Then she told me. Mark had been dipping his hands into company funds, skimming just enough from investments to stay under the radar, until Olivia tipped off the board. You sent the evidence? I asked, incredulous. Every last piece, she confirmed. Bank statements, emails, even the shady offshore accounts. My jaw dropped. How the hell did you get those? She chuckled. I was married to the idiot for 10 years, Ethan. Did he really think I didn't have access to his secrets? I let out a slow whistle. You are ruthless. And you love it, she teased. She wasn't wrong. Mark was finished. If the fraud charges stuck, he wouldn't just lose his job. He could go to prison. I pictured him sitting in his office, watching his empire crumble around him, knowing Olivia was the one who lit the match. It was beautiful. What happens next? I asked. She hummed thoughtfully. Well, I'd say he has two choices, fight it and lose, or take a plea deal and still lose. I grinned. I love a win-win situation. I didn't have to wait long for Mark to call. I let it ring. Then I let it ring again. Finally, I answered. What do you want? His voice was shaking. Ethan, listen. I know I screwed up. Okay? But you have to tell Olivia to back off. She's ruining my life. I laughed. Actually laughed. Olivia's not ruining your life, Mark, I said. You did that all by yourself. Come on, man, he begged. We were friends. You weren't my friend. I cut in, my voice dropping. You were a liar, a backstabber, a cheating coward. Silence. Then, his voice turned desperate. Please, Ethan. I have nothing left. I leaned back in my chair, savoring the moment. How poetic. First Lisa, now Mark. Both of them crawling back. Both of them losing. I let the silence stretch before I finally spoke. Not my problem. And then I hung up. Mark was done. Lisa was gone. But I wasn't finished. Not yet. There was one last thing I needed to do. I had spent so much time reacting to Lisa's lies, to Mark's betrayal. But now? Now, I was the one making the moves. And I had one final play to make. I picked up my phone and dialed Olivia. She answered on the first ring. Tell me you're enjoying this as much as I am. I chuckled. You have no idea. But I have one last idea. She hummed. Do tell. I did. And she loved it. Lisa had nowhere to go. She had burned every bridge, lost every ounce of security she had relied on. Mark was sinking faster than the Titanic, and Olivia had already taken every penny he had left, which meant Lisa was alone. And desperate people make mistakes. I needed her to make one last big one, so I baited her. I sent her a text. Lisa, let's talk. Meet me at the lodge. 1 hour. She responded immediately. You mean it? You'll hear me out? I smirked. 1 hour. Then, I called Olivia. It's time, I said. She laughed. Oh, this is going to be good. I arrived at the lodge before Lisa. This place, the place where she and Mark had destroyed our marriage, was about to become the site of something even better. Olivia was already there, sitting in the back corner of the lobby, sipping a glass of wine like she didn't have a care in the world. I slid into the seat across from her. Are you sure she'll show? She asked. I nodded. She's desperate. She smirked. Perfect. And then, right on cue, Lisa walked in. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for me. She looked broken, tired, like a woman who had lost everything. Good. I stood, making sure she saw me. Her face lit up, hope flickering behind those familiar blue eyes. She still thought she could win. She was wrong. We met in one of the lodge's private lounges. A fire crackled in the stone fireplace, throwing shadows across the wooden walls. Lisa sat across from me, wringing her hands. "Ethan," she whispered. "Thank you for meeting me." I didn't respond. I just waited. She exhaled shakily. "I don't know how to fix this," she admitted. "But I want to." I leaned forward. "Why?" She blinked, startled. "I mean, why now?" I continued, voice calm. "Why not a month ago? A year ago?" She swallowed hard. Because I was stupid. I was selfish. And I see that now. Ethan, I love you. I always have. I held up a hand. "Stop." Her breath hitched. Then, I said the words that shattered her completely. "Lisa, I didn't come here to fix this." She froze. I leaned back, crossing my arms. "I came here to watch you break." Tears welled in her eyes. "Ethan, please." I smiled. Slow, cruel. "Check your phone." Her brows furrowed, but she obeyed. The moment she saw what I had sent, her entire face crumbled. Screenshots. Text between her and Mark. Every dirty secret. Every lie. Every betrayal. And at the bottom? A legal document. Lisa's divorce papers. Already signed. Her voice broke. "You." "I filed this morning," I said smoothly. "Daniel's handling the rest." Lisa shook. I stood, straightening my jacket. "You can stay here tonight. The room's already paid for." I smirked. "But after that? You're on your own." She collapsed into sobs. I didn't care. I walked out of the room, and when I reached the lobby, Olivia was waiting. She raised an eyebrow. "How'd it go?" I smiled. "Better than I expected." She clinked her wine glass against my beer. "To new beginnings." I drank, because for the first time in years, I was finally free. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter. No Lisa. No Mark. No more lies poisoning my life. Just freedom. For the first time in years, I had no obligations. No one to answer to. No one waiting at home with a fake smile and a hidden agenda. I sat on my porch, sipping coffee, letting the cool morning air settle around me. And then, my phone buzzed. A text. From Olivia. "Olivia, Lisa's trying to reach Mark. She still doesn't know he's skipping town." I smirked. Me, let her chase ghosts. Olivia sent back a single laughing emoji. Because that's all Lisa had left now, ghosts. Mark was gone. Lisa was nothing without him. And I was done playing their game. Mark didn't put up a fight. When Olivia exposed his financial fraud, his company cut him loose immediately. Then, like the coward he was, he tried to run. I had expected him to grovel, to beg for a second chance. But no, he did what rats do. He fled. Olivia had heard from a mutual friend that Mark had packed up and disappeared overnight. No job, no house, no money. Lisa, on the other hand, was still clinging to the wreckage, still texting me. I didn't read her messages, but I saw the previews. "Ethan, please just talk to me. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Can we meet? Just once?" I didn't reply. She didn't deserve my words anymore. That night, Olivia and I met at the same bar. She looked happier, lighter, like a woman who had also cut off the deadweight in her life. She slid into the seat across from me, raising an eyebrow. "How does it feel?" I took a sip of my drink. "Strangely satisfying." She laughed. "Right? Watching them fall apart without us." I chuckled. "It's poetic." She swirled her wine glass, studying me. "So what's next for you?" I thought about it for a second. Then, I shrugged. "I don't know," I admitted. "For the first time in years, I don't have a plan." She smiled. "That's the best part." And maybe she was right. Maybe this was the beginning of something new. It ended where it began. The lodge. I hadn't planned on coming back here, not after everything. But something about this place, about closing the loop, felt necessary. So I booked a room. Not the honeymoon suite, that was tainted now. Just a simple room with a view of the lake. I sat on the balcony that evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, letting the quiet settle inside me. For the first time in years, there was no weight pressing down on my chest. No lies. No betrayal. Just me. Lisa had stopped calling. Stopped texting. Maybe she had finally accepted that I was gone. Or maybe she had no one left to turn to. Either way, I didn't care. Mark was long gone. Olivia had finalized her divorce. And me? I was alive again. The next morning, as I checked out of the lodge, the receptionist gave me a hesitant smile. "You were here a few months ago, weren't you?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah." She bit her lip. "I just wanted to say, I'm glad to see you back. You look better." I smiled. "I am." And I meant it. As I stepped outside, the cool air filled my lungs. I wasn't the same man who had walked into that room months ago and found his wife tangled in someone else's arms. That man had died that night. And the man standing here? He was finally free. The end. If you like this story, please like and subscribe to the channel.